Hello, I am Laurie Halverson, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, steps going forward after the Magruder shooting. Will we see vaccine passports or lockdowns in our future? Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is retiring. Will any Republicans run for office in Montgomery County? Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We are joined by the chair of the Montgomery County GOP, Reardon Sullivan, goes by Sully, and education consultant and former teacher and principal, Fred Evans. Stay tuned for these stories and more on 21 This Week. This segment hits home for our panelists because Fred was Sully's teacher at Wootton High School. It has been over a week since the shooting at Magruder High School. The 15-year-old victim remains in critical condition. Last year, our county's elected officials decided to remove its 19-year-old school resource officer program. Fred, about 4,800 people have signed a petition saying the county should bring back the SRO program. Should our county leaders reinstate SROs in our schools?
Well, this is a very passionate issue with me. When I was principal in Montgomery County from 93 to 2000, 1993 to 2000 at Gaithersburg High School, I actually had the first resource officer, school resource officer, and that was in 1998. We instituted it through the city government when Mayor Katz was the mayor of Gaithersburg and Marianne Viverette was the chief of police, and we got it worked out. And I'm very passionate about it. It's not an end-all and be-all program, but it is a very supportive program, and it helps the safety and security of schools and communities. The school resource officer is not in a building to arrest students or to harass them. He is there as a resource, he or she, excuse me, and the resource officer did such things as teach classes and work with students in counseling and a variety of different things. He was there in my case, he was there as a presence. The Magruder, could the Magruder shooting have been avoided? Who knows? There are so many more issues dealing with guns, and we're going to get into that, I know, during our discussion. So I think that it should be reinstituted by all. I've been testifying about that ever since it was removed, and I will continue to do that and continue to advocate for it. And as I want to stress again, it's not the end all and be all. There are many other things that need to occur in a school to ensure safety, but the resource officer is one key variable.
And didn't all the principals vote to, I mean, they didn't vote, but they all support the school resource officer program?
Absolutely. Didn't vote, but they sent a resolution to the,
Yes.
I believe it was to the school board and the county executive to reinstitute the program.
Yes.
And, I have this thing about if a resource officer or any person in a role is not fulfilling that role, you get rid of the whole program? I don't think so. It is a program that works. There's a National Association of School Resource Officers that's located in Florida, and they do extensive training of all resource officers around the country. It's a wonderful, excellent program.
Sully, what do you think?
This is one area where I think the Republicans and most Democrats really agree that the reinstating of school resource officers is very, very important. This has really been a tough week for Montgomery County, from the shooting at Magruder High School to the death of a Wheaton firefighter. Also, this past Thursday, some of us know that there was a robbery of a student at Northwood High School. And our thoughts and prayers go out to these families, and I believe several GoFundMe accounts and other programs have been set up to help the victims. But let's not forget the police, firefighters, and other first responders that put their lives on the line every day to protect us. That's why Republicans back the blue, because we owe them so much. The violent crime in Montgomery County has really increased at an alarming rate, not only in schools, but also the rate of homicides, armed robberies, carjackings, and home invasions is spiking. And I guess we can't understand the rhetoric to defund or reimagine policing. I mean, what is the county council really thinking here? I mean, what does that even mean? So yes, I think Fred and I would definitely agree that school resource officers need to be back in school. Not that the school resource officers are the only solution to school violence, but they are an integral part of reducing school-based violent crime. Also, one last point, even after the Magruder High School shooting, the county executive said the SROs are not coming back. He fails to mention that SROs provide a preemptive deterrent. They work to develop the rapport with the students. Also, that the county's budget eliminated 5 SROs from the schools, eliminated 5 police officers from patrol investigations unit, and also eliminated a traffic compliance officer from all 6 districts for a savings of $580,000. But they did add an inmate advisory council to the jails. I think that was about $540,000. And I would suspect that most citizens would rather see our tax dollars go towards the safety of our children and in our homes. I guess the bottom line is we need different leadership in the county now to turn this around.
Okay, Fred, I need to cut you off because we need to get to the next topic here on the ghost gun issue. Fred, the person who shot this young student purchased a ghost gun online. Do you think ghost gun laws would stop future incidents in our schools?
You don't have enough time to hear my whole routine on this one. Our issue with guns in this country is incredible. This is what I'm going to say next is relevant. My father, Dan Evans, was a POW in World War II, and he was captured and fortunately survived that, obviously. And he came home, he brought a German Luger, and what he did before he gave it to his brother's quote souvenir, he had it dismantled so it could never be used. That's what I learned about guns from my father. Our rhetoric about the Second Amendment and all that, this ghost gun issue, to answer your question specifically, is just another example of our extensive use and misuse of weapons in this country. It is outrageous.
Do you have anything to add, Sully?
I think that the proposed legislation is clearly wrong as it violates the Second Amendment to prohibit anything that could possibly be construed as making a gun. What we're missing is that the real issue here is not the gun. The gun is just a tool. The real issue is the person using the gun. The violence perpetrated with guns is symptomatic of the lack of direction and respect for authority. That's respect for police, respect for educators, and the respect for life. We need to change attitudes, not legislate symptoms.
Thank you, Sully. With the extreme surge of the Omicron variant of coronavirus, our county executive, Mark Elrich, proposed that the county council pass a vaccine passport mandate. This week, after hearing an overwhelming negative response, the decision was made to table the issue instead of actually voting on it. Sully, was this a win for residents?
Oh, yeah, you bet it was. The residents came out in force against the mandate. This included Republicans, Democrats, independents, business owners, and everyday citizens. All agreed that this proposed mandate was bad for Montgomery County. This legislation further demonstrates how out of touch the county council is with the citizens. What most people also don't know is the county council held a non-publicized Zoom meeting on the 27th where they all supported vaccine passport mandates. Very few people saw it and very few people were able to actually comment on it.
Fred, do you expect we will see vaccine passports or lockdowns in our future?
I don't think we will, but I do have a different point of view than Sully on this one. I think that mandates are important, especially in this given situation we're dealing with. This is it's not appropriate to say very unique. It's unique, the COVID-19, and we haven't had anything like this for a very, very long time. And I think it's important that people are vaccinated. What is going on, for instance, not to bring up another sore topic, but what's going on in Virginia, where the governor is not required, saying that schools are not required to wear, for instance, masks and all of that, I think is unsafe. I'm not a doctor, but I think during this high profile time, we need to have these mandates.
Do you have anything to say to that, Sully, about Virginia and what they're doing?
I'm concerned with Montgomery County and the idea of the vaccine passport, to actually require a passport or to show your ID to go in to have a meal. I don't think it's really feasible. And that was the overwhelming sentiment on the county hearing. I mean, if you go in to have a meal, do you want is the hostess going to be asking for your papers? It just seems, I would say, un-American. It just seems wrong.
Thank you, Sully. When we come back from short break, Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is retiring, and will any Republicans run for office in Montgomery County? Stay tuned. Welcome back. This week, Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer announced his retirement from the bench. President Biden assures the country he will honor his pledge that he will nominate a Black woman for the open seat. Fred, who do you think Biden will choose?
I don't have any idea who he will choose. However, I think it's a very critical time in terms of the balance on the court, depending on what your political perspective is, that he would like to get someone who would be of a, how do we say, of a more liberal stance than the current makeup of the Supreme Court. And it is a very, very critical time because the balance of the Senate and whether he gets approval and how soon that approval comes. So I think it's going to be very interesting. And I'm sorry I don't have names off the top of my head, but I'm sure that he will do. And I think I read in the paper this morning that Kamala Harris will be a major driver of this research and present the name, the appropriate person for that slot.
Wow, she's actually going to be working on something this year. Kamala Harris. All right. Sully, do you—
Did I say it correctly? Kamala.
Kamala, I don't know. I say Kamala. Sully, do you think Biden should have mentioned race when he made his pledge?
Well, to your original question, like Fred, I have no idea who may be nominated, but a nominee will be forthcoming, obviously. And I have to assume that given the narrow majority the Democrats have in the Senate, and with Biden's, I guess, tanking poll numbers, his administration wants to move quickly on this before the Democrats lose the Senate, which I hope is actually this November. Regarding choosing a judge based on the color of their skin or sex, I think that's just wrong. We need to choose the best person for the job, regardless of race, sex, or religion. Not selecting the most qualified candidate lowers the quality of outcome for all. I mean, this conversation is really equity versus equality. Equality tells us that everyone should be given the same chance at the start, and their success will be based on their effort and innate abilities. Equity, on the other hand, promotes equality of outcome, which we all know is not possible. So Fred, would you like to play a game of basketball? We can talk about that. Just kidding.
Well, I need to say something about equity. And that would be, what you just said would be true if our history were equitable from the beginning. And I don't have to get into that whole historical lesson. So that I think it is important to have balance. And that's what we're talking about here on the Supreme Court. And he was very direct about that. So I can't agree that it shouldn't be considered an item. And I'm actually pleased that he said it very directly. That's my opinion.
We all have to agree that different people have different strengths and weaknesses. And a person's outcome is strongly dependent upon their abilities and their innate efforts. I mean, and whereas I understand your point, Fred, but if everybody has different abilities and puts forth different efforts. And I think that is the key to who should be selected for the highest court in the land.
Well, it is unfortunate that the Supreme Court justice will be scrutinized because the president made color the most important issue over her abilities. So that's what I have to say about that. Anyway, we'll move on to the next topic when we come back. Sully, since you are the chair of the county's GOP, can you tell us if any Republicans will file to run for office?
Actually, Laurie, I'm not here to make announcements regarding who is running for each seat.
Darn, I hope we were going to get that from you today.
No, actually, that is for each Republican candidate in their campaigns to announce in their own special way. But yes, we will be on the general election. And basically, we will have candidates that will be viable alternatives to, I guess I'll say, the somewhat tone-deaf Democratic leadership that only believe that they need to win in the primary.
Fred, do you think it's possible for a Republican to win a local office in Montgomery County?
I think it's very difficult, but I also, being I guess I can say it here, lifelong Democrat, but I also can say that we have a person who's running the state governor right now who's a Republican. So I think it goes back to the quality of the candidate. And I think people will make a choice if they see good qualities in a Republican candidate. I think the odds are tough, but it could happen. It could. We did it a few years ago.
Hey, Fred, I won't hold it against you being a Democrat, but a couple of minutes ago you were talking about equity. Wouldn't it be fair to have some Republicans in the county council?
If we had a different kind of election process, but we don't. So how would that happen?
Well, basically on issues. The county council has, from my perspective, screwed up COVID. They've shut down the schools. They're teaching CRT in the schools. They're defunding the police. I think there's enough issues that the voters in Montgomery County can give Republican candidates a second look, or hopefully a first look, simply because the Democratic leadership has done such a poor job at running the county.
I don't agree with you on all those issues, but I won't get into each one of them. I think that it's dependent on who the candidate is and how he or she presents those issues that you just talked about. And if he or she can come across as a viable candidate, then I think people will cross over their party lines and vote for him or her. But it's about the issues and how that person presents himself or herself.
And Fred, I think you have some really good points on the quality is very important. And I hope that voters will also, if they see that balance is important on the bench for the Supreme Court, they'll also think that balance is good for Montgomery County.
Right.
So anyway, well, thank you. And when we come back from this short break, we'll hear parting shots. Stay tuned. And now for parting shots, Fred.
Well, for it's not a parting shot. It's first how elated I am to have been on a panel with a former student of mine. It was mentioned at the beginning of the show. And I just want to say that Sully was a good student. He's a great leader here in Montgomery County, and I want to thank him for, although we don't agree on all issues, it shows that we can still agree to disagree. And it was a pleasure to work with him. That's number one. Number two is I can't state strongly enough how I feel about guns. I've been involved with the Moms Demand Action Group and a variety of things. The Second Amendment says, a well-respected militia being necessary in the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That was a different time. And it was a time that has changed drastically, just like we were a country of slavery when that amendment was written. So I really want to emphasize to everyone, let's do something about controlling the accessibility of certain, especially certain types of weapons and guns. And lastly, I look forward to the election coming up, and hopefully we will have viable candidates in both parties.
Sully.
Well, I want to also say thanks to Fred. Fred was a landmark teacher when I was growing up and attended Montgomery County Public Schools at Wooten High School. And we actually reconnected recently over political issues. And one of the things that we, I think, agree on is that people have to talk, have a conversation, and have what I would call an intellectually honest conversation. That's the only way we can work together to move things forward. As far as the political landscape in Montgomery County, I think it's wide open. The current county executive and county council's mishandling of COVID, their inconsistent and unsupported mandates, school shutdowns, their defunding of the police, teaching CRT in our schools, the Thrive 2050 master plan changes, and increasing crime, not to mention economic instability. It's really made the political landscape more appealing for Republican candidates. And I would like to hope that after the 16-year drought, there will be a Republican elected to office. We really need that here in the county to, as Fred was mentioning, maintain some semblance of balance and, I guess, new and different ideas that will help the county move forward together.
That's it. I want to thank Sully for being here. This is his first time on the show. And thanks to veteran Fred Evans, who once hosted a show on our local cable channel years ago. I'm Laurie Halverson, and thanks to you for watching and keeping up with the news on 21 This Week.